The end of apartheid in South Africa in 1994 marked the conclusion of a long and oppressive era of racial segregation that dominated the country for nearly 50 years. Apartheid, which means apartness in Afrikaans, was introduced in 1948 by the National Party and enforced laws that separated the population into racial categories: white, black, colored, and Indian. The white minority held all the power, while non-white South Africans faced severe restrictions on their rights, from where they could live and work to what education they could receive. Resistance grew, led by figures like Nelson Mandela and the African National Congress, ANC, along with other anti-apartheid groups. Mandela became a global symbol of the fight against the system, but in 1964, he was sentenced to life in prison, serving 27 years before his release. By the 1980s, South Africa faced internal unrest and international pressure, including economic sanctions and cultural boycotts. The apartheid regime was increasingly isolated, and the country's economy was struggling. In 1990, President F.W. de Klerk made the pivotal decision to release Mandela from prison and begin the process of dismantling apartheid. Over the next few years, negotiations took place between the government and opposition groups to transition South Africa toward democracy. In April 1994, South Africa held its first democratic elections where people of all races could vote. Nelson Mandela, the ANC's candidate, won by a landslide, becoming South Africa's first black president. His presidency was focused on reconciliation, unity, and healing a deeply divided nation. The end of apartheid was the result of decades of struggle and sacrifice, both within South Africa and from international solidarity. Though challenges like economic inequality remain, the end of apartheid set the country on a path toward a more just and equal society, transforming South Africa's political landscape forever.
Majority. These are the moments in which we live.
السيد إسحاق رابين رئيس وزراء ووزير دفاع دولة إسرائيل يتحدث إلينا. Mr. Yitzhak Rabin, Prime Minister of the State of Israel and Minister of Defense, will now
address. The time has now come, not merely to dream of a better future, but to realize it. President Clinton, thank you for your tremendous support throughout the entire process, which was vital for the achievement of this final result. I would like to thank many others on the Israeli side, on the Jordanian side, that worked very hard, day and night, that we will be allowed to reach this great moment. The Foreign Minister, allow me to end by the simple words, Shalom, Salam, peace.
This place that for decades was nothing more than a field of nines was turned overnight into a field of dreams. Today we're again honored to bear witness as those dreams come true. King Hussein
assure you that Russia as a co-sponsor of the peace process will be with you and with others on all tracks until there is firm peace, and after that in building truly prospective life in this region. Thank you.
גבירותיי ורבותיי,
يتحدث الآن إلينا.
ועכשיו דברו של נשיא ארצות הברית, the President of the United States of America, William Jefferson Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I say to the people of Israel and Jordan, now you must make this peace real, to turn no man's land into every man's home, to take down the barbed wire, to remove the deadly mines, to help the wounds of war to heal. Open your borders, open your hearts. Peace is more than an agreement on paper. It is feeling, it is activity, it is devotion. The forces of terror will try to hold you back. Already they take deadly aim at the future of peace. In their zeal to kill hope and keep hatred alive, they would deny all that peace can bring to your children. We cannot, we must not, we will not let them succeed.
هي السيد ويليام جيفرسون كلينتون، جلالة الملك الحسين المعظم ملك المملكة الأردنية الهاشمية، رئيس دولة إسرائيل السيد عيزر وايتسمان، سمو الأمير الحسن المعظم، وزير الخارجية السيد شمعون بيريز، وزير الخارجية السيد وارن كريستوفر.
the President of the United States, Bill Clinton,
On what's left of Gaza's ravaged streets, something different. Voices rarely raised in public, condemning Hamas openly. This is Beit Lahia in northern Gaza. The people demand the downfall of Hamas. They're chanting. Hamas is the source of all the problems we've seen in Gaza, says Assad Warshaga. What did we benefit from the war? There were messages, too, aimed at Israel. Stop the bloodshed, says Mahmoud al-Hajj Ahmed. We can't tolerate any more. And to Hamas, we've had enough, he says. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seized upon the development to justify his decision to resume the war 42 days into a truce. More and more Gazans understand that Hamas brings destruction and doom upon them, he told the Israeli parliament. Netanyahu has been under heavy domestic pressure over his conduct of the war, especially from the friends and family of Israeli hostages. Israel resumed bombing in Gaza last week after Hamas refused to modify the terms of the original truce. Israel is also restricting humanitarian aid there again. Hamas has governed Gaza since 2007, but Israel and Egypt have maintained control over its border crossings. Dissent is rarely tolerated by Hamas, but anger and despair combined have a power of their own. What do we have left in this world, asks Muayed Dahir. We're not scared anymore. We've nothing left to be scared for. Palestinian health officials say more than 50,000 people have been killed in Gaza since Israel began its military campaign. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London. On what's left of Gaza's ravaged streets, something different. Voices rarely raised in public, condemning Hamas openly. This is Beit Lahia in northern Gaza. The people demand the downfall of Hamas. They're chanting. Hamas is the source of all the problems we've seen in Gaza, says Assad Warshaga. What did we benefit from the war? There were messages, too, aimed at Israel. Stop the bloodshed, says Mahmoud al-Hajj Ahmed. We can't tolerate any more. And to Hamas, we've had enough, he says. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seized upon the development to justify his decision to resume the war 42 days into a truce. More and more Gazans understand that Hamas brings destruction and doom upon them, he told the Israeli parliament. Netanyahu has been under heavy domestic pressure over his conduct of the war, especially from the friends and family of Israeli hostages. Israel resumed bombing in Gaza last week after Hamas refused to modify the terms of the original truce. Israel is also restricting humanitarian aid there again. Hamas has governed Gaza since 2007, but Israel and Egypt have maintained control over its border crossings. Dissent is rarely tolerated by Hamas, but anger and despair combined have a power of their own. What do we have left in this world, asks Muayed Dahir. We're not scared anymore. We've nothing left to be scared for. Palestinian health officials say more than 50,000 people have been killed in Gaza since Israel began its military campaign. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
Born only hours ago, already with big shoes to fill, baby Muhammad was named after his brother who was killed by Israel's bombardment last year. He was only 4 years old. More than 50,000 people have now been killed since the Israeli assault began on October the 7th, 2023. But that number is only those who have been identified. The real death toll is likely to be much higher. In February, the government media office revised its tally, saying the more than 11,000 Palestinians who were missing are now presumed dead. Muhammad's mother is hoping and praying her new son will have a better chance at life.
He was the one who made me a mother. My new baby is my gift from God, but no one will ever replace my son. My wish now is to stay alive and be able to see my children grow up.
This is a war on women and children. The UN says they make up 70% of the Palestinians injured or killed. After a fragile ceasefire that had lasted nearly 2 months, Israel resumed its offensive on Gaza last Tuesday. Child rights groups described that day as one of the deadliest for children in Gaza's history.
We the people are not guilty. What crime have we done to lose 50,000 martyrs and 11,000 are missing? What have we done? We struggled a lot. We want to rest. We want to stay in our country. We want comfort.
With little to no medical care, a shortage of food and a lack of basic supplies, people here have more than just Israeli bombardment to fear. Palestinians say death comes too easily, too quickly. And what's difficult is a proper burial. Families who sought refuge together now share one coffin, one graveyard, if they can find space.
The death toll keeps mounting, but for every family, one loss is one too many. Many remain under the rubble, many are still missing, and many confront death with each passing moment. Tariq Abazoum, Al Jazeera, Deir al-Balah.
Determined to pursue its legal case against Israel, South Africa submitted a 5,000-page document to the International Court of Justice, which it says contains proof that the Jewish state willingly committed genocide in Gaza.
Israel has violated the Genocide Convention by promoting the destruction of Palestinians living in Gaza, depriving them access to humanitarian assistance and using starvation as a weapon of war.
South Africa said the procedure sought to mobilize the same international solidarity which helped bring an end to the apartheid 30 years ago and called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon. On Monday, dozens of people gathered outside Cape Town's High Court to voice their support for the case and to express solidarity with the Palestinian people.
We have to do everything that we can to stand firm, to create a difference, to make sure that this stops before every single Gazan is dead.
Israel is an egregious lawbreaker. It has no respect for the rule of law, and it has failed to implement the ICJ's ruling in January this year when it held that there was a plausible case of it committing genocide.
Since the procedure was launched in December 2023, the ICJ has issued several emergency rulings denouncing Israel's actions in Gaza and ordering it to halt its military offensive on Rafah. But despite being legally binding under international law, all these injunctions have so far been ignored.
Satisfied that the provisional measures that we sought to be addressed would be addressed by the court. And I believe if you read the convention very carefully, the matter of how a war or conflict is conducted is not elaborated. I would have wanted that the word cessation is included in the judgment. I have no way that I'm going to say I'm disappointed. I hoped for it, but the fact of delivering humanitarian aid, the fact of taking measures that reduce the levels of harm against persons who have no role in what Israel is combating, for me, requires a ceasefire. And I believe Israel would have to attend to how it conducts its search for the hostages and for those Hamas individuals who carried out the October 7 attack.
What's the next step?
I've never really been hopeful about Israel, but Israel has very powerful friends who I hope will advise Israel that they should act.
Israel's commitment to international law is unwavering. Equally unwavering is our sacred commitment to continue to defend our country and defend our people. Like every country, Israel has an inherent right to defend itself. The vile attempt to deny Israel this fundamental right is blatant discrimination against the Jewish state, and it was justly rejected. The charge of genocide leveled against Israel is not only false, it's outrageous, and decent people everywhere should reject it. Our war is against Hamas terrorists, not against Palestinian civilians. We will continue to facilitate humanitarian assistance and to do our utmost to keep civilians out of harm's way, even as Hamas uses civilians as human shields. We will continue to do what is necessary to defend our country and defend our people.
The court considers that, with regard to the present situation, Israel must, in accordance with its obligations under the Genocide Convention, in relation to Palestinians in Gaza, take all measures within its power to prevent the commission of all acts within the scope of Article 2 of the Convention, in particular, A, killing members of the group, B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, and D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. The court recalls that these acts fall within the scope of Article 2 of the Convention when they are committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part the group as such. The court is also of the view that Israel must take measures within its power to prevent and punish the direct and public incitement to commit genocide in relation to the members of the Palestinian group in the Gaza Strip.
I just want to cross to our chief election analyst, Tom Connell, again for an update. Tom?
Chris, the blue wall is broken, and I'll show you what this means in a moment. Pennsylvania, I told you we needed a bit more of the vote to come in. We've got it. You can see the total vote now in Pennsylvania, 91, nearly 92% counted, 3.4% the margin, or more than 200,000 votes. The current rate in terms of the votes remaining, it's not going to close enough. That's going to be a clear win to Donald Trump. So he carries Pennsylvania. That's another one that he's flipped. When we go now to our overall results, we colour it in and we see that Pennsylvania is now going to be Donald Trump's going to win that presidential election, 267. So what's to come? How does he get there? Yes, there's the rest of the blue wall. There's Arizona. There's Nevada. He's a strong chance in all of those. But before that, we get to little Alaska. Yes, Alaska. It's obviously a Republican hold. We just want to make sure nothing strange is happening. We've already got 26% of the vote. We've got Donald Trump clearly ahead. This is just something the Republicans don't lose. So we also have a victory for Donald Trump in Alaska. What does that mean? The race to 270, well, that is now over. Donald Trump wins the state of Alaska. And as a result, Donald Trump is once again going to be the president of the United States.
Extraordinary stuff, Tom. Thanks for that, Tom Connell. There, we call it here on Sky News, Donald Trump has won the 2024 election. He'll be the first American president to lose office in an election, stay out of office for 4 years, come back and win the next election to return to the White House for a second term. The last American president to do that was Grover Cleveland in 1892. This is an extraordinary turn of events. I want to go back to the US Capitol, Washington, D.C., and pick this up with Kristen Tate and Paul Murray. We talked a bit, Kristen, about the media and the left and how they should be ashamed about how they've facilitated all this, if you like. We'll get back to that in a while because it deserves some examination. But talk to me about Trump's supporters. His base has stuck with him through thick and thin and has been demonised by sometimes their fellow citizens and certainly by the nation's elite for a decade.
Well, of course. And I think the attacks on Trump supporters from the media and the left, though, have lost a little bit of their venom. I mean, at this point, you know, you turn on the television and you see these talking heads trying to demonize Trump supporters or Trump and calling Trump and his supporters Hitlerian, and people just kind of roll their eyes and yawn at this point. They have been ringing these false alarm bells on the media about Trump being a dictator and all of his supporters being complicit in that for years. And guess what? Trump was in office for 4 years. We were able to see how he governed. The whole Trump is a dictator thing just doesn't really add up. We have no history to support that claim. Yeah. So I think it kind of rolls off the back of a lot of his supporters now. But of course, they're extremely excited tonight. They were successful in getting the numbers they needed and convincing people who didn't vote for Trump in 2020 that this messaging from the media is a lie.
Steve Kornacki, I just have to jump in. And you've been predicting this. We've been waiting for it. And we do have some breaking news from the decision desk. NBC News can now project that Donald Trump has won the state of Wisconsin, which means he is the winner of this race and will return to the White House as this country's 47th president. And for so many of you watching right now, that news is, to say the least, a lot to digest. I understand that personally. After he lost 4 years ago, he refused to accept the outcome and incited a violent insurrection on our nation's capital. He's campaigned while facing criminal indictments related to his efforts to overturn the 2020 results, and he's run as a convicted felon. During this campaign, he has also promised to essentially be an authoritarian leader, to use power like no American president ever has before, and wield that power to go after his political enemies. This is a man who's also bragged about overturning Roe v. Wade and stripping away women's bodily autonomy. He's promised to conduct mass deportations to crack down on the rights of millions of Americans. Donald Trump is an anti-democratic force, but he's just been elected democratically in our country. And here's what might be the hardest part to hear, but we have to talk about and we have to say, and it is a hard part to digest for all of us. But we have to be honest about what we saw in this election. Donald Trump was elected by expanding his support over a number of key groups that we've been digging into this night, all night tonight, as we anticipated where this was headed, and I know we're going to dig into it throughout the course of the day today. And there will be a lot of time spent on how and why he won and what this will mean for the country over the next 4 years and beyond. But in this moment, it's also important to remember that our democracy is not built around one person or one job. And I have every confidence that pro-democracy forces in this country will continue to stand up and make their voices heard. That's what we saw after 2016 as well. Some of those voices will be governors, some of them will be elected officials, some will be institutions and organizations standing up for rights and standing up for women's bodily autonomy and standing up for our climate. Some will be citizens, and many of you sitting at home right now digesting this news right now, some of them will be you. I wish I had better news for my daughter later this morning. I know Tim Miller and I were talking about this earlier when she and so many others wake up to this news. I wish I could have called her and told her that the first woman president had just been elected. I wish that. I won't be able to do that. But what I can do, what I can tell my daughter, and what I will tell my daughter, is that our roles as American citizens have never been more important than they are right now. I can tell her that there are still lots of good forces out there, forces for good in this country, and that they are going to be getting to work.
Donald Trump converted to Judaism 2 years ago, according to White House official. There it is. That's his blog. He said, President Donald Trump converted to Judaism 2 years ago and joined Chabad Lubavitch Synagogue in New York City, according to a high-level White House official. Mr. Goldberg says the story has allegedly been held by CNN's editors for months, but is due to be released within the next few days. David Elias Goldberg, a fellow at the Jewish Center of Anti-Semitic Study, has also interviewed the White House source. According to the source, Trump was pushed by his daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared Kushner to join the faith. At first, Trump resisted, stating it would threaten his base of evangelical Christian voters. However, he had a change of heart and officially converted in early 2017. The ceremony was held in private and closely guarded for nearly 2 years. It appears the White House is prepared to slowly release this information, and by summer, it is expected Trump will fully address his new faith in an evening televised news conference. He is clearly the most pro-Israel president in the history of America. He's given Israel every single thing that they've wanted, and he's about to give them war with Iran.
You okay?
And so has he converted? So I want to show you one more article. This is, let me see if I can.
This is the Times of Israel.
Yeah, the Times of Israel. This was published March 22nd, 2019. This is the Times of Israel. Trump, the first Jewish president of the United States.
Now, that's not us saying that. That's Times of Israel. Times of what nation? Israel.
So the people in Israel, that's an English-speaking newspaper in Israel, and that's what they read, that Donald Trump is the first Jewish president of the United States.
And how did they qualify that, Rick?
They gave a list of things that he did for Israel.
First of one, of course, moving the embassy to Jerusalem.
That's right.
That was a big deal.
Then recognizing Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. He's the first sitting U.S. president to visit the Western Wall. They gave him credit for defeating ISIS. They gave him credit for rebuking the United Nations when the UN criticized Israel. They credit him with closing the Palestinian office in Washington, D.C. And they said these things, what is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, these 6 things qualify Donald Trump to be named the first Jewish president of the United States.
And that's what the Times of Israel said.
Again, that was not David Duke's newsletter.
Right.
It's a Jewish-owned newspaper. And they're proclaiming Donald Trump to be the first Jewish president of the United States. So now when you look at this David Elias Goldberg saying that a White House insider told him that President Trump converted to Judaism 2 years ago.
Suddenly it doesn't sound so crazy, does it?
Now it's not too crazy. And that CNN knows about it, and CNN is sitting on the story and will be releasing it at some point.
It was history's darkest hour. Millions of innocent, wonderful, and beautiful lives, men, women, and children, were extinguished as part of a systematic attempt to eliminate the Jewish people. It was the most savage crime against God and his children.
We were so deeply moved to see that picture of you touching the stones of the wall. And may I say, we were deeply moved to see First Lady Melania Trump touching the stone on that wall. And equally moved when we saw your daughter Ivanka and your son-in-law Jared do the same.
Okay, so let's just, what if it's true? What if it's true? What does that say to you, Doc?
That says to me there's been such a major shift in values in America. It's no longer Judeo-Christian values anymore. It's Judeo values now.
Yes. Yes.
Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things. So that's under investigation right now. We'll make a determination. They're taking away land, they're confiscating land, and actually they're doing things that are perhaps far worse than that.
Welcome to Next Africa. I'm Jennifer Zabasaja, and this month we dig into Washington's relationship with the continent. Donald Trump's return to the White House was always bound to shake up U.S. relations with the rest of the world.
So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
But not many people could have predicted this. Within hours of taking office, a slew of executive orders followed and the promise of widespread tariffs.
Remember again the word tariff. Tariffs on chips, tariffs on oil and gas, a lot of tariffs on steel.
Now, President Trump's brinkmanship has injected uncertainty into the global economy, with Africa set to suffer from many of the consequences. The shuttering of U.S. aid and plans to exit the World Health Organization dealt a double blow to African nations. And he's even targeted the continent's most advanced economy, South Africa, freezing financial aid because of a new land expropriation law.
Terrible things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is doing some terrible things, horrible things.
Now, Trump has falsely claimed that human rights violations are being committed and that the government is seizing land from white farmers. It's an accusation that's being backed by Trump's South African-born ally and the world's richest person, Elon Musk. But Pretoria is standing firm.
We are, as South Africans, a resilient people.
And we've been saying, for this issue of the land, this issue that Donald Trump fears so much, we offer this question of the land. I don't know what Donald Trump has to do with South African land, because he's never been here. And he must keep his America, we will keep our South Africa. That's what he must do. South Africa is our land. South Africa belongs to all the people who live here in South Africa. It does not belong to Donald Trump. He can keep his America. And Ene is even worse. He is even worse. When I meet him, I will tell him. I will say, you, Donald Trump, you are even worse, because your forebears came to America. They found the native, the indigenous Americans. They wiped them out. They killed nearly all of them. Rine, we are living as a nation, and black and white, we are going to find solutions for our land question. So Donald Trump must leave us alone. He must leave us alone, Maori. When we were facing apartheid, when we were facing oppression, he was not here. He did not fight side by side with us. And we were able, on our own, yes, with support of progressive forces in the world, to resolve the apartheid question. As far as I recall, Donald Trump was not around the negotiating table when we negotiated the end of apartheid. So stick around there in the White House. We will do our business here, and we will find solutions for our problems. So stay out of our issues, and we will not get involved in your issues in America. You have your own problems. Leave us alone. We are sitting now around the table.
To the conflict in the Middle East, we did warn at a very early stage that unless the challenges and the war between Israel and Palestine in Gaza is handled with care and with great wisdom to ensure that there is a ceasefire and humanitarian assistance, the war would soon escalate beyond the borders of Israel, and it would engulf countries in the Middle East. So this is totally unhelpful, and it is something that should not be happening. We should not be having a regional conflict when we know what the origins of this conflict are. And we therefore call upon all parties to desist from escalating this conflict, because it is a very dangerous conflict that could soon escalate way beyond even the borders of the Middle East. The world least needs a conflict that can escalate to these levels. So as South Africa, we have warned about this, and we are once again saying, let all actors desist from escalating this type of violence. It should not happen. We should not lose lives unnecessarily.
Mr. Trump could promise to use his building skills to build a temple.
We'll all see the building of the third temple in Jerusalem very soon. And we honor our President Trump for what he has done for Jerusalem and for the Jewish people.
So we have the priest, we have the red heifer, we have the land, and we have everything ready.
Ideas are becoming a reality.
Temple Institute and the Sanhedrin have been actively preparing for the construction of the third temple in Jerusalem. In this video, you can see they're discussing the location where to build the third temple. Some Jewish rabbis suggest building the third temple next to the Dome of the Rock. This is well supported by Israel Minister of Defense saying a synagogue should be built next to Al-Aqsa Mosque so that the Jews can also pray, not just Muslim. But the Temple Institute officials who have been preparing the third temple construction believe that the third temple must be built where the first and the second temple once stood. That is exactly on the Temple Mount. Jews have been digging tunnels under the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound since the early 1980s to find remains of the second temple and prepare for the third temple. They've dug 64 tunnels, with many on the western side, putting the mosque at risk of collapse. This has really worried Muslims and international observers, who fear that continued digging could cause the mosque to collapse. Jews believe that if they were allowed, they could build the third temple in less than a month. So, why haven't they started? The simple reason is that it's not safe and secure. They fear that if they build it now, it could be destroyed again, just like the first and second temples. They want the third temple to last forever. But before that, they need to eliminate any threats to the Jewish state and the temple. Right now, they're fighting for their rights and their temple. Listen to this army explain their wishes and ambitions.
And one day our true leader will come and we'll be united as a whole Jewish nation so we can rebuild the Beit HaMikdash.
The current Israeli government, led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, has shown strong interest in building the third temple. Although the official policy is to maintain the status quo, several officials, including Netanyahu, have expressed support for the idea. This is part of a broader effort to assert Israeli control over Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. The government's stance reflects their desire to fulfill biblical prophecy and strengthen Jewish identity. Pete Hegseth, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, strongly supports building the third temple on the Temple Mount. In a speech, he said there's no reason why it couldn't happen soon, highlighting the progress made so far. Hegseth believes this could fulfill biblical prophecy and strengthen Jewish identity. He also encouraged Israel to use the current political climate to achieve their goals.
And there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible.
Many see the current U.S. President Donald Trump as a key player in this effort because of his strong support for Israel. Trump has also expressed interest in rebuilding Gaza, calling it a big real estate site.
Ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East.
There's speculation that Trump could take over the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound and turn it into an international site. Some believe Trump could be the one to make the third temple a reality. Just wait and see, as we might be witnessing the second coming of Donald Trump. Take a look at the red heifer situation now. Many see 2025 as a significant year for the potential sacrifice of these heifers. The red heifers brought from Texas in 2022 have now reached the required age for the ritual, and there's growing anticipation that the sacrifice might happen this year. Temple Institute officials are working hard to choose one perfect red heifer, as 2 were disqualified last year. Out of the 5 heifers from Texas, 3 were disqualified due to white hairs, leaving 2 viable candidates. And the remaining heifers are carefully monitored to ensure they meet the strict criteria.
It's an honor to be here with the first Jewish president of the United States.
Based on the current situation, many believe that Trump will set the first stone for the third temple construction. You know that Jews believe that whoever built the third temple, he is the Messiah. That is why Jews never believe in Jesus as Messiah, because he failed to build the third temple.
Presented to President Donald J. Trump for his extraordinary and heroic efforts. I like that very much.
Will Trump be Jewish Messiah or even be the king of the Jews? Leave in a comment.
The time is near. Soon I will rise. Finally, I have been released onto this world. If I bring your family back from the dead, then will you believe I am your Lord?
You stand there, hoping for a false salvation.
I am who you think I am. I am the Mahdi, and I will bring justice to this broken world. I will make all your desires come true. Just ask, child. I am your savior. I bring you life where there was death, wealth where there was poverty. Follow me, and you will never want again. This world belongs to me now. Let those who defy me face my wrath. Bow to me, I am your God.
You are the deceiver the prophet warned us about, and you will never succeed. You have already lost, Mahdi. Your faith will crumble before the truth of power.
Your master's power is nothing but an illusion, a fleeting shadow that will be swept away by the truth.
You, the one-eyed deceiver, today you die.
The whole world is watching. The course of human history is changed today.
This is not a test. This is an emergency broadcast transmission.
We're going to stay on the air for as long as possible.
We're seeing heavily armed forces being deployed.
Every man make himself and his country proud. Be brave. Be brave. Be brave.
Locations across the globe were breached.
3, 2, 1, drop.
me. You believe. Blessed are those who have not seen me, and yet